They believed that they were delaying your destiny, but all they did was give the fire more time to spread. Let's get this straight. They did not block you, they built the pressure cooker. Every attempt to stall you only turned the heat up higher. Every door they tried to shut just rooted you into a path they can't access. And now the temperatures are rising. They threw ice at a volcano, and now they are shocked that it is erupting. They believed that silence meant victory. They believed that slowing your steps meant stopping your development. However, the universe doesn't run on noise. It runs on alignment, and when someone messes with a chosen one, they're not just messing with a person, they're trying to interrupt a divine system. That's why it's crashing back on them. Now, if this is hitting your spirit like a truth you've always known deep down, pause and hit like subscribe if you walk in that chosen energy, because every click sends a signal to this platform that this message is bigger than a video. It tells the algorithm chosen ones are waking up. Push this to more of them. You're not just watching this. You're helping amplify the voice of a movement the universe is fueling in silence. Now listen closely. They didn't just try to slow you down. They tried to hijack the whole frequency you were riding. And here's what they didn't count on. You were never powered by applause. You were never fueled by approval. Your source was never external. You were chosen. And when the universe chooses someone, every detour becomes development, every rejection becomes redirection, and every delay, that's not denial, that's a countdown, a quiet ticking that ends in eruption. The truth is, they feared what would happen if you ever found your rhythm, so they tried to break your momentum before you got moving. They whispered behind your back. They blocked you in meetings. They ghosted you when you needed answers, stalled your plans, delayed support, twisted timelines just to watch you doubt yourself. But they didn't understand one thing. You can't delay what's already aligned. What's for you doesn't expire. It compounds, and the longer it's held back, the heavier it hits when it lands. You weren't stuck, you were charging, you weren't overlooked, you were hidden until the weight of your presence could break the fake rooms they built. The silence wasn't stillness, it was strategy. While they were partying over your pause, the universe was loading the next level. So stop asking what's wrong with you. Start realizing how much power you're carrying. You were never waiting on them. They were unknowingly preparing your launch. The chosen don't panic during the pause. They build, they align, they sharpen. And when they rise, it's never subtle, it's disruptive. And now your rise is echoing through the walls of people who swore you'd fade out. That's why your enemies are haunted. Not because you fought them, but because you outlasted the chaos they planted. You didn't curse them. You didn't attack. You simply kept existing. And your existence has become the evidence that they lost, because they told everyone you wouldn't make it. Now they're watching you walk through every door they tried to shut, glowing harder, speaking clearer, attracting more, rising faster, because what's for you doesn't need permission. It only needed pressure, and they supplied it. You're not burning out. You're burning brighter, and the delays, those weren't setbacks. Those were accelerators disguised as opposition. The universe doesn't forget who it backs, and chosen one, you've been backed the whole time. So let's be real. They didn't delay your destiny. They funded it. They should have left you alone. But now they've got front row seats to the very wealth, peace, and elevation they swore you'd never reach. And no amount of silence can mute the sound of your breakthrough anymore. So before we unlock what's really unfolding behind these so-called delays, I want you to pause and type the number 77 in the comments. If you know deep down that every setback was secretly setting you up, then that number isn't just a reply. It's a signal to the platform that this message is for those who can't be stopped, blocked, or delayed forever. You're not here by accident. The energy pulled you in because your rise is already in motion. And this right here, it's just a sign that you're about to accomplish something. A confirmation. Let's make sure that more people who have been chosen get this hit subscribe. Let the platform know that we are not going to back down. We are burning forward. And now let's break it down step by step. And listen, if you really are chosen, you will feel it. Not in your head, in your gut, that magnetic pull telling you to stay locked in until the last word, because every section will feel like the universe is reading your receipts out loud. Let's get into it. Number one, they built roadblocks. You turned them into runways. They attempted to impede your progress, but they just gave your greatness a head start. You were chosen. You weren't built to crumble. You were built to convert pressure into purpose. And now every brick they threw in hatred has become a step on the staircase they never thought you'd climb. They thought they were stopping you, but all they did was teach you how to rise in silence. That's the part that haunts them now. Not just that you survived it, but that you mastered it. They planted blocks. Let's address it in its raw form. They didn't just try to delay you, they constructed entire obstacle courses under the assumption that they were building your coffin. However, they forgot one thing. You are chosen. You weren't built to crumble, but you planted roots. They wanted you confused, stuck gas, lit, doubting your own worth. They wanted your head so down you'd forget how high you were born to go. But chosen ones, we don't stay confused for long. You might have been shaken, but you never stopped building. You turned every delay into drive, every rejection into reinvention. You're not standing in spite of what they did. You're standing because of it. They tried to humiliate you, tried to strip your name down to whispers and rumors. They couldn't handle your presence, so they tried to erase it. But you were never someone who required validation in order to move. Your alignment was already etched into the fabric of your path. See chosen ones. Don't just walk through fire. They absorb the heat, convert it to fuel, and come out hotter than the flames ever expected. Think about it. How many times have you questioned yourself in the midst of all that resistance? How many nights have you lied awake wondering why everything seems to be working against me? Here's the answer. Because what's working for you is greater. The pushback is proof of the fact that you are able to overcome obstacles. Pressure. And pressure is always the prelude to purpose. The enemy didn't see a person when they looked at you. They saw a threat to everything false. They built their identity around. Let me remind you, they were never attacking your weaknesses. They were trying to slow down your power. The power they felt but couldn't quite understand. They didn't block you out of strength. They blocked you out of fear. And now that you're still standing, moving, glowing, they're scrambling, trying to make sense of how someone they wrote off is now writing the future they were trying to steal. Let me give it to you. These weren't people with easy paths. They were people with undeniable alignment. They didn't break through because the world welcomed them. They broke through because the world couldn't stop them. And you're made of that same blueprint. The chosen don't coast. They're carved out of conflict. Do you really believe that Malala didn't encounter resistance meant to silence her completely? Do you really believe that Steve Jobs didn't face sabotage from the very people he created with? Do you really believe that Malala didn't encounter resistance meant to completely silence her? Do you really believe that Malala didn't encounter resistance meant to silence her? They built roadblocks. Good, you needed the resistance because easy paths make average people. But chosen ones are forged, not formed. They delayed you thinking you'd get tired. They didn't realize delay is where your discernment gets sharp. Delay is where distractions get cleared. Delay is where you find out who's real and who's just clapping until the spotlight shifts. While they were mocking your pause, you were building private power. Now they can't keep up, not because you're suddenly lucky, but because you trained while they partied. You don't owe them an explanation. You do not owe them a breakdown of how you are still glowing after they have turned off every light around you. The truth is that the power of being chosen does not make sense to those who are not aligned with it, and that is what scares them. They are unable to trace your glow back to them. You are not thriving off of their assistance. You are rising from the ruins that they attempted to bury you under. Understand that when you are chosen, every attack is reverse engineered by the universe into your elevation. They gave you limitations, and the universe turned them into launch pads. They gave you rejection, and the universe spun it into redirection. They tried to box you in, and now they're watching you operate outside every rule they tried to trap you with. That's not ego, that's alignment. That's the cosmic law they ignored when they thought hurting you wouldn't hurt them back. Chosen one, the reason their tactics didn't work is because your purpose was never tied to their platform. You were never meant to play by their timing. You don't move by popularity. You move by permission from something greater, and now every block they tried to place in your path is becoming part of your blueprint. The evidence that you didn't just make it, you rewrote the way forward. Let this settle in your bones. You were born with a frequency they couldn't decode. That's why they tried to crash it. They didn't try to delay you because they thought you were weak. They did it because they felt your heat before it became visible. They felt your future pulling away from them, and it terrified them. So they threw everything they had: petty words, delayed emails, backhanded compliments, ghosting, gossip, sabotage, isolation. But what happened? You built a runway, you took flight, and now they're stuck on the same ground they tried to trap you on, wondering how you keep ascending, wondering how the fire they tried to smother is now the light exposing their entire game. You see, your life isn't just a story of survival. It's a prophecy in motion. You were supposed to be delayed because the universe needed to get them out of the way before your blessing landed. That's not punishment, that's protection. And the delays, they weren't denial, they were divine disruption, clearing the air so you could land without turbulence. They built roadblocks thinking you'd break. You turned them into runways they'll never land on. And now the same people who tried to slow your steps are watching you take off, and they can't follow because the altitude you're rising to wasn't built on access. It was built on alignment. Let them watch, let them regret, but you keep rising because what's for you has already cleared the skies. Number two, they tried to trap you in time, but you answer to timing. They tried to trap you in time. They believed that time was on their side. They believed that if they hindered you for a sufficient amount of time, dragged out your progress, slowed your growth, and played with your momentum, you would give up. They believed that you would question the vision. They believed that you would look around at everyone else who appeared to be sprinting ahead and assume that the delay meant denial. However, what they did not know, And what they still do not understand is that those who are chosen do not move according to human schedules. You do not respond to fear-based tactics or distractions driven by ego. You move in divine precision. You do not follow time. Follow timing, and that is a completely different frequency. See, they used earthly tactics such as sabotage, gossip, isolation, ghosting you in key moments, spreading confusion behind your back, and cutting off access in the hopes that you would become stuck in emotional quicksand while they performed progress in public. However, what they failed to see coming was the part of you that is not driven by applause, speed, or performance. You are not powered by timelines. You are powered by truth. And truth does not panic under pressure. Truth waits until the stage is set on noise clears. Truth doesn't run, it arrives. They tried to trap you in time, but you were never playing their game. They were watching the clock, you were watching the sky. They built fences around you thinking you'd stay caged, but they built a fence around a storm. And now they're realizing they can't contain what was never meant to be tamed. You weren't running late, you were in alignment, you weren't lost, you were being launched. Timing doesn't rush the chosen, it protects them, because elevation without preparation leads to collapse. And you weren't built to fall under pressure, you were built to reign under it. Let's be real. You did feel the sting of delay. You did wonder why things weren't moving. You looked around and saw people winning with less, succeeding with lies, manipulating their way forward while your integrity was costing you time. But chosen one, you weren't being left behind. You were being set apart. Not everyone gets to carry that kind of power. Not everyone can handle what you're about to walk into. The longer the wait, the heavier the reward, not because it's a prize, but because it's purpose. And purpose cannot be microwaved. The adversary hoped that you would confuse stillness with stagnation, and that you would interpret divine timing as rejection. However, the universe was hiding you in plain sight, not to punish you, but to preserve you. And the people who thought they were ahead were just moving fast in the wrong direction, because speed without alignment is like a train without brakes. And now the same people who mocked your patience are panicking in their chaos. Let's go deeper. When you are chosen, every moment is calculated, and every pause is a blessing. Protective. You were prevented from taking advantage of certain opportunities because they would have harmed your evolution. You were slowed down not because you were not prepared to rise, but because they were not prepared to deal with you rising. Timing is not a delay tactic. It is a defense mechanism. It prevents you from being exposed before you are fortified. It protects your vision while distractions burn out. And when timing says go, there is no lie, no delay, and no block that can stop what is already in motion. Think about it. They were rushing around playing small games while the universe was preparing your real move. They mistook your silence for surrender. They misread your patience as passivity. But what's coming to you doesn't need noise to arrive. It comes wrapped in perfect timing, dressed in alignment, escorted by momentum. No human can manipulate. And now their biggest fear is unfolding. You're still coming after all the stalling, all the closed doors, all the behind-the-scenes sabotage. You're still moving, and it's not forced. It's not frantic. It's fluid, because chosen ones don't scramble. They are shifting. You were not late. You were being locked in, and now the gate that they thought they built to block you is the same gate that they are watching collapse under the weight of your arrival. They were unable to trap your future. They were unable to stop your timing, because the rhythm of a chosen one is synced with forces that they are unable to control. You are not on their clock. You are not looking at deadlines. You are listening to divine cues. That is why their delay did not stop you. It positioned you, and now they are watching you move with a grace they cannot explain and a glow they cannot imitate. They tried to stop you from moving in a way that would have prevented you from being positioned to fence in a force of nature. They thought that building walls would stop a wave. They thought that setting deadlines on your destiny would kill the dream. But they forgot that you are chosen, and chosen ones aren't bound by time. They are backed by timing, and timing, it's never late. It's just loading the exact moment when everything flips and nothing looks the same again. Number 3, every delay they designed just made you more dangerous. You got hotter while they stalled, and now they're getting burned by what they lit. They thought delay would be the answer to fix the problem, would dilute you, that pushing pause on your progress would pull power from your potential, but instead of slowing you down, all they did was light the fuse. Every time they blocked a path, the pressure built. Every time they stalled you, they stretched your fire. And now that fire is uncontrollable. They created the storm they now have to survive. Let's be clear, the delays they orchestrated weren't random. They were strategic. They hoped you'd fold. They hoped frustration would eat your vision alive. They wanted the silence to become suffocating. But chosen ones don't just survive in silence, they evolve in it. And while they were celebrating your stillness, you were building quietly, deeply, powerfully. What they didn't count on was this: delay doesn't dull destiny, it sharpens it. The longer you waited, the more dangerous you became. Not reckless, refined, not bitter clear. They were hoping time would distract you. Instead, time trained you. You studied patterns. You strengthened your resolve. You got smarter, sharper, more strategic. You figured out what they couldn't, that every no was actually making room for the right. Yes, they rejected you, and now you're the one with leverage. They blocked you, and now you're building a table they can't sit at. They doubted you, and now your existence is their reminder, because here's what's unfolding. The delay wasn't a dead end, it was a loading zone. And what's arriving now is not just progress, it's payback by alignment. No revenge, no rage, just results they can't deny, and a glow they can't dim. They thought you'd get weaker the longer it took. They assumed time would erode your confidence, but they forgot. The chosen don't break in the weight, they build weight in it. You did not lose momentum, you gained mastery. While they were conspiring to hold you back, they were unknowingly giving you time to become a version of yourself that they are no longer equipped to handle. Now they are choking on the very smoke they sparked, because the you that they tried to stall has turned into someone who is so aligned, precise, and untouchable that they can't even recognize you anymore. That scares them, because when they came for you, they came for the unrefined version. But now you are a threat that they can't calculate. You don't make any sense. The plan was straightforward. They would delay you for a sufficient amount of time so that you would forget your power. However, all they did was force you into the kind of growth that cannot be bought, rushed, or manipulated. And now you are rising not only in invisibility, but also in velocity. They gave you time, and now time is your weapon. The delays did not weaken you. They warned the universe that you were coming. And now the universe is clearing space. Number 4, They laughed at your pause. Now they are unable to handle your play. They clapped at intermission, but they did not knowing the next act would steal the whole show. They laughed when you went quiet, when life slowed down, when your name wasn't in their mouths anymore, when your progress didn't look public and your growth didn't look loud. They assumed silence meant surrender, that you are done, forgotten, finished. But chosen ones don't fold in the pause, they fortify. You weren't fading, you were loading. You see, they only knew how to measure power by visibility. If they couldn't see it, they assumed it wasn't real. But what they didn't realize is that your process was never for public validation. The universe had you tucked away in precision. It wasn't a breakdown, it was a blueprint, being drawn in silence made just for you. Customized, refined, untouchable. They laughed, all right. They made jokes. Whispered in rooms you still carried with your energy. Created group chats about your fall off, watched you from the sidelines like spectators at a halftime show, convinced the game was over, but what they were really watching was your intermission. And now that the curtain is rising again, they don't know how to process what's walking back on stage. Because you didn't just return, you transformed. They mocked your pause, and now they can't handle your play. The very mouths that ran when you were still are frozen now that you've moved. The people who felt comfortable mocking your silence are rattled by your sound. And the best part, you didn't change for them. You changed in spite of them. You evolved off radar. You elevated without announcement. And now that you've resurfaced, it's not even about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Let's get this straight. They thought they had time to discredit you, time to rewrite the narrative while you stayed quiet, time to replace you in rooms they thought you'd never re-enter. But timing doesn't bow to mockery. The universe doesn't fold under laughter. It waits. And when it moves fully. And now the stillness they laughed at is the silence. They're sitting in, they don't know what to say. They don't know how to handle the fact that you didn't just come back. You came back with more depth, more fire, more clarity than they ever imagined. Because the pause wasn't punishment, it was preservation. You weren't being sidelined, you were being sharpened. Your pause was your preparation and your return. It's the performance they'll never forget, not because you're trying to perform, but because your presence outshines the illusion they created in your absence. So let them watch, let them struggle with the fact that the story they thought ended just entered its most powerful chapter. Number 5, they wanted you to doubt yourself. You became undeniable instead. Your doubt fed their confidence until your destiny made them choke on it. Let's tell the truth, chosen one. They couldn't kill your power, so they tried to convince you it didn't exist. They couldn't shut down your light, so they threw shade, hoping you'd start seeing yourself through their distorted lens. And for a moment it worked. You questioned yourself. You replayed every moment you asked, was it me? Did I overreact? Am I too much? But you weren't the problem. You were the presence they couldn't handle, and your power. It wasn't invisible. It was undeniable. That's why they targeted it. They didn't fight you with facts. They fought you with manipulation. They used silence like a weapon. They twisted. You were not unstable. You were unsettling. You were the one calling out what they were desperate to keep hidden. And when the truth walks in, the fake always panics. However, here is what they never saw coming. You believed in yourself again. You stopped begging people to understand you. And you started remembering who you are. Narratives. They constructed entire illusions with the intention of making you question your own intuition. Because if they could make you doubt yourself, they wouldn't have to do the hard work of confronting their own mediocrity for them. You realized you didn't lose clarity. You were just surrounded by people committed to pretending they couldn't see. You stopped shrinking to fit their fragile comfort zones. And now that confidence they tried to kill is the same energy silencing their noise. You became undeniable. Not because you suddenly became louder, but because the lies stopped working. Because the growth you went through in private is now echoing in public. Because the light you carry is no longer seeking permission to shine. That's the part that haunts them. Not that you rose, but that you rose without them. They needed you to need them, but the moment you stopped seeking validation was the moment their whole strategy collapsed. See, chosen one. Your doubt gave them breathing room. Every time you second-guessed your energy, your insight, your timing, they got more comfortable. Your humility became their camouflage. But alignment doesn't stay hidden forever. And now they're gasping under the weight of what they tried to suppress. They can't laugh it off anymore. They can't deflect because your existence is the evidence, and evidence doesn't argue, it stands. Let this be the season you stop apologizing for what they couldn't digest. You weren't too much, they were too small. You weren't wrong, you were ahead. You weren't broken, you were being refined. And the version of you that came out of that self-doubt unshakable. Your voice carries clarity now. Your moves are intentional. Your presence feels different because it's grounded in knowing, not questioning. So let them sit with that. Let them chew on every seed of doubt they planted, now grown into a garden they can't step foot in. You were the solution all along. And now the world is finally seeing what they worked so hard to bury, and that is the real victory number 6. They attempted to disrupt your flow by releasing a flood. They placed sandbags in front of a tsunami. They truly believed that they could block you. They believed that if they just threw enough distractions in your path, created enough noise, slowed down the process, cut off the connections, and played enough games, they could disrupt your flow. However, what they failed to realize and what they never saw coming was that the chosen do not move in the way that they had intended. Streams, they move in surges. You weren't trickling toward purpose. You were becoming a flood. Every strategy they used to block your flow only made the current stronger. Every time they tried to dam up your destiny, every stall, every ignored message, every moment they made you feel unseen. The pressure built. You were never losing momentum. You were gaining force. And now the very system they used to contain you is bursting at the seams. You're not returning with a whisper. You're returning like a tidal wave. They mistook your pause for an ending. They mistook your pause for an ending. They mistook your pause for an ending. They mistook your pause for an exclamation. Thought you were finished when you went quiet. But that silence wasn't surrender. That stillness wasn't stagnation. It was the rising tide, gathering strength, building power under the surface. And now the same ones who tried to stop you are scrambling, trying to make sense of how you're coming back louder, faster, deeper, and stronger than ever. Before they underestimated the nature of chosen ones. We don't retaliate immediately. We don't match pettiness with pettiness. We store power. We absorb the energy of the resistance, and then in one move, one undeniable moment, we release what can't be ignored. And that's what they're facing now. Not you being aggressive, not you clapping back, just the unstoppable flood of everything they tried to hold back, now moving straight through what they built. It's not personal, it's pressure, it's the energy they tried to contain, finally snapping loose. And the wildest part, you didn't even push. You didn't force your way in. You didn't scream. You didn't fight dirty. You let it build, and now it's here. The surge, the breakthrough, the divine force. They thought they could stall with lies and delay tactics. They tried to outmaneuver timing with ego. And now the pressure they created has become the flood they can't survive. Understand this: every bit of resistance they offered was the universe's way of adding intensity to your impact. You needed the delay to build force. You needed the opposition to refine your route. You didn't miss anything. You were being multiplied. That's why your return feels so different. That's why your voice hits different now. You're not just back, you're overflowing. So let them stand there holding their little sandbags, thinking they can hold back a soul aligned with timing and backed by universal force. Let them panic as the flood reaches their feet, wondering how they went from blocking your blessing to drowning in the results of their resistance. They tried to interrupt your flow, but all they did was release your flood. Number 7, they couldn't block you, so they tried to break you. You don't just bounce back, you detonate forward. When they realized they couldn't block your path, they turned to something more sinister. They went after your spirit, because physical sabotage has limits. But emotional sabotage, that's where cowards try to win wars. They can't fight face to face. They knew they couldn't outwork you, outshine you, or outlast you. So they tried to wear you down, not by attacking your goals, but by planting doubt in your soul. Subtle digs withholding love, celebrating your silence, smiling in public while undermining you in private. They didn't just want to stop your progress, they wanted to disconnect you from your purpose. Chosen one, hear this clearly. That season wasn't your breaking point. It was your refining fire. You weren't collapsing. You were being weaponized. What felt like weakness was actually the strength being smelted in silence. While they plotted your breakdown, the universe was building your breakthrough. Every tear they mocked, every moment they mistook for failure was fuel being stored. And now that fuel is combustion, now you're exploding forward. Not despite the pain, but because of it. They wanted you to crack. They pushed you to isolation. They played with your emotions like it was a game, because broken spirits are easier to manipulate than bold ones. They wanted you hollow, easy to fill with their narrative. But the thing about the chosen is this: even when we bend, we recalibrate. We don't stay down, we don't crumble, we reconfigure. What was meant to destroy you didn't just fail, it built you into something they'll never understand and can't compete with. They thought they were breaking you, but you were just leveling up in silence. They thought your pause meant defeat, but you were absorbing new code. You don't just come back, you come through like fire, through dry grass, unapologetic and irreversible. You walk differently now, not because you were spared from suffering, but because you persevered through it and survived what was intended to crush you. Let's be honest, you did feel the weight. You questioned yourself. You asked, why me? More times than you'll admit. However, the universe knew what it was doing. It wasn't setting you up to suffer, it was setting you apart. The very energy that was used against you could become the charge that powers you beyond anything they could have imagined. If you are still standing, you should realize that you didn't just survive sabotage. You became the signal that exposure is the key to freedom coming. And that terrifies them, because now they know they didn't just fail to break you, they helped forge you. They couldn't block you, so they tried to break you, but all they did was build something they'll never be able to silence. Number 8, you got hotter because you were held back. You weren't slowed down. You were slow cooked into something too rich to be rushed. They thought they were holding you back, thought that by delaying opportunities, blocking progress, and dragging their feet on decisions that affected your path, they were somehow dimming your light. But all they were really doing was increasing your temperature. You weren't cooling off. You were heating up. The delay didn't diminish your value, it deepened it, because chosen ones don't fade in waiting seasons. They ferment, they get richer, sharper, more potent, and now you're not just hot, you're blazing like pressure turns coal into diamonds. The time they thought would break you only refined you. You weren't standing still, you were being seasoned. The kind of value you carry can't be microwaved. Your glow takes time because it's not about impressing people. It's about impacting the right moments. You weren't delayed, you were being developed, and now that development is undeniable. They stalled a soul that was already glowing, thinking time would turn you cold. But chosen ones don't lose heat in the wait. They gain clarity, depth, and fire that can't be contained. The longer they made you wait, the more intense the return. Because every time they pushed your blessing back, they added interest to your breakthrough. Every detour was seasoning. Every delay was marination. And now you're too flavorful for the bland spaces they tried to trap you in. The worst part for them. They saw it early on. They felt your glow before it even got bright. That's why they tried to stall it. That's why they suddenly went cold. Why they hesitated when it was time to give credit. Why they backed away when your energy started demanding a different level of respect. They didn't want you to realize how hot you were becoming. So they tried to cool you down with silence, with distance, with disinterest. But all that did was give you space to burn hotter. Now look at you. They thought your presence now carries a heat that burns through pretense and melts fake smiles. You walk into rooms with the kind of power that makes people nervous. This is not because you are loud. Rather, it is because your energy says, I took my time and came back unbreakable. You would simmer out, fade into the background, and give up under the weight of maybe later. However, instead, you have become sharper. They wanted you rushed so you'd miss your development, so you'd stumble into rooms you weren't ready to own. But the universe didn't let it happen. Timing protected your evolution, and now you're too formed to be faked, too strong to be shaken, too radiant to be ignored. So let this be your reminder. You weren't slowed down, you were being slow cooked, and now you're too rich to be rushed and too hot to be handled. Number 9, wealth doesn't rush, it waits for music, alignment. You don't need 100 yeses. You need one opening that fits your frequency. Let's talk about it. Real wealth doesn't show up early, loud or desperate. It's not impatient. It doesn't need to be chased. It waits, not because it's scarce, but because it knows its worth. And chosen ones, they don't chase abundance. They align with it. Because when you're chosen, wealth doesn't just mean money. It's peace, it's purpose, it's presence. It's walking in rooms that match your spirit instead of shrinking for ones that don't. They wanted you to. Panic to feel like time was slipping through your fingers to convince you that you had to beg for scraps just to survive. But when you're aligned, lack is a lie. Every delay wasn't a rejection. It was a filter, a clearing, a divine sweep of anything that couldn't handle your value. The fake deals, the exploitative opportunities, the draining partnerships, the performative platforms. Those closed doors weren't losses. They were locks that preserved your energy for something real. They were hoping you'd settle, hoping your hunger would overpower your discernment. But chosen ones don't feast at every table. We wait for the one built with our name in its wood grain, because wealth that comes too early costs too much. And when the universe is backing your path, timing becomes protection. You don't want fast, you want forever. And forever doesn't come pre-packaged. It's revealed in alignment. Abundance didn't pass you by. It was simply being curated, tailored, lined up behind the scenes so that when it hits you, don't question it. You know it's yours because it won't come with chaos. It won't require you to lower yourself. It won't drain you. It will recognize you, match you, elevate you. You see, the world teaches panic, rush, scarcity. If you don't grab it now, it's gone. But the universe doesn't work like that. It operates on frequency, not fear, and your frequency refined through every setback. Every silent night, every closed door is now calling in wealth that can only hear you. That's why you didn't need 100 handouts. You needed one door, the right door, the aligned one, the one they couldn't open for you, even if they tried, because it was locked with your energy. So let them call it delay. Let them mock your stillness. You know better. You know what's yours is magnetized, not manipulated. You know what's coming to you doesn't require hustle, it requires harmony. They can chase noise. You'll wait for resonance because the chosen don't just win, they inherit. Remember, this wealth that's aligned never rushes it. Shows up when you're ready, not when they say you should be. Number 10, their delay became the delivery system. They lost the race the moment they tried to trip the runner who never needed a lane. They thought they were stalling you. They thought the delays they orchestrated, the silence, the red tape, the last-minute shifts, the maybe next time were hurting you. But chosen one, they weren't delaying your destiny, they were delivering it. What they called sabotage was actually set up. Their interference, it triggered divine intervention. And now the very time they tried to steal from you has been reinvested by the universe into something they can't even comprehend. They delayed the call thinking you'd miss your moment. But the universe didn't just hold it, it upgraded the entire package. You were never going to receive a basic breakthrough. You were meant for custom elevation, and that kind of delivery doesn't move on human timing. It waits until every player, every move, every piece of your future is perfectly aligned, and then it drops like prophecy, not late loaded, while they were busy trying to trip you up. What they didn't realize is you're not the kind of soul that needs a lane. You don't run their race. You set your own rhythm. You weren't dependent on their timing, their approval, or their access. So when they tried to block you, they weren't slowing you down. They were diverting you from distraction. And that delay, it became the very thing that saved you from premature exposure. You have to understand this. When you're chosen, the universe watches the moves people make against you very closely. It doesn't react emotionally, it moves strategically. So while they thought they were getting away with it, the system was watching, taking notes, rearranging the entire structure behind the scenes. And now they're watching in confusion as everything they tried to block shows up in your life better, bigger, and brighter than it ever could have if they had left you alone. That's the part eating them up now. The very delay they created is the same delay that gave you time to become untouchable, time to refine, time to learn, time to prepare. They thought they were running you out of options. But the chosen don't run out. They get rooted. They thought you missed the opportunity. No, the opportunity missed its original exit, so it could meet you at the one aligned with your worth. They delayed it good. That delay came with interest, because the universe doesn't forget what's owed to its chosen. And now you're walking into blessings they swore would never reach you, while they sit in rooms trying to figure out how their little detours didn't stop a destiny that was never tied to them in the first place. They tried to delay the outcome, but they didn't know. The delay was the delivery system. Number 11, you were chosen. That alone is the curse they can't escape. They tried to stop what was for you, and now they're stuck watching it arrive on schedule. Let's bring it home. They didn't just come against a person, they came against a prophecy. They didn't just try to ruin your name. They triggered a ripple in the system that protects the chosen, and now, regardless of what has happened, they are unable to escape the curse. How far they run, no matter how silent they try to stay, you haunt them. Not because you went after them, but because you didn't need to. You didn't fight them. You didn't retaliate. You didn't stoop to their level or match their chaos. You survived. And that's the part they'll never escape. You surviving what they thought would break you. That's the curse they can't shake, because every time your name is mentioned, it reminds them of how wrong they were, how small their schemes really were, how nothing they did could stop what was always meant to rise. You are their unfinished lesson, their consequence wrapped in calm, their mirror dressed in success. You were supposed to collapse. That was the plan. That was the narrative they crafted. The story they told themselves, the version they sold to others. But instead of folding, you flourished. And now your growth, your alignment, your elevation is the echo that keeps them from sleeping. They don't talk like they used to. That smug confidence they once had when your name came up gone, because now you're the proof that what's for you won't miss you. We thought the delay would drain you, but all it did was multiply your momentum. It gave you time to evolve into someone they are no longer qualified to even stand next to. They had time to do right, but they chose to play games. Now, the very success they tried to stop has front row visibility, and they have to watch you shine in silence. They can't do anything about it. No matter how delayed it was, no matter how much resistance it received, and no matter how many people tried to interfere with it, it still found you on time, fully loaded, and wrapped in a purpose that they couldn't fake or fabricate. Clap, they can't comment. All they can do is observe from a distance they helped create. This is what it means to be chosen. It's not about being better. It's about being backed. Backed by rhythm, by alignment, by the universe itself. That's why nothing they did worked. That's why every plan crumbled, because you weren't just fighting for yourself. The system fought for you quietly, precisely, relentlessly, and now chosen one. You are walking in the very thing they said would never happen. Your glow is no longer waiting for validation. Your blessings no longer depend on their permission. Your energy is undeniable, and your presence alone is proof that truth outlasts lies, that purpose can't be delayed forever, and that alignment always finds its way. So let them sit in it. Let them watch. Let them remember you were chosen, and that alone is the curse they'll never recover from. And now you see it clearly. Every delay was divine. Every setback was set up, and everything they did to block you only built you. You didn't just survive what they threw. You transcended it. The chosen don't just bounce back, they rise unchained. And now your glow can't be dimmed, your momentum can't be paused, and your path can't be touched. If this message hit your spirit, hit like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments. If you're done doubting and ready to dominate, share this with another chosen one. The universe is calling them too. Let's keep rising.